Hey, what's up everyone? So I want to give a shout out to Purposed Lens Photo and Media for inspiring me to work a little bit harder to get my talking head shot a little bit better by changing a little bit of the scenery, the lighting and everything. I hope this looks good. The purpose of this video is to go into all 10 of my cruises and to talk about them and rank them. I think that everyone will find their cruising profile, and then you'll eventually, by a kind of experimentation, you'll find exactly what you like about a cruise and you'll be able to book the perfect cruise. But hopefully this talk will help you kind of narrow that down ahead of time so that you can find your cruising profile earlier than I did. Still enjoyed every single trip and I loved the journey. But had I clicked on a video like this in the past, it may have helped me to decide. Anyway, the first cruise that we went on was my ex and my honeymoon cruise in 2009 on the Carnival Legend out of Tampa, Florida. It went to Grand Cayman, Belize, and Roatan outside of Honduras. That was probably that was the first cruise that we had both been on. My first cruise, actually. I think it was her second or third cruise. It just blew my mind. And I was like, why hadn't I done this before? Because I always thought, never really looked and thought that cruising was something that was way outside of my price range. But after I started looking and thinking about things, I remember taking vacations to Myrtle Beach, staying in a hotel, and by the end of the trip, with food and everything else, it ended up costing me about $1,000 at least, and staying in an interior cabin on a cruise ship at that time wasn't much more. And it was all inclusive. That was a spectacular cruise on the Legend. The entertainers played songs that we liked at the time. We were into Dave Matthews Band and some of the, I guess, 90s and early 2000s type of music. And there was this one entertainer that was just really had, his whole entire playlist was from that era. So we really enjoyed the trip. We also, what makes a cruise the best is when you meet someone or another couple that we got along with real well, and they actually became long-term friends of ours. Dan and Grace, if you're watching this video, what's going on? The second cruise that we went on was on the Carnival Fantasy. We thought going out of Charleston, it's only a 3-hour drive from where I'm at, would be convenient, and it wasn't that expensive. We also went in the off season. We went in October of 2010, and it was very cost effective. We really enjoyed that cruise. We went to Key West, Freeport, and Nassau. I loved Key West. Freeport was okay. Nassau, at this time it was actually our first time to Nassau. I liked Nassau the first time that we went. It was pretty cool. Nothing spectacular. I don't know if we got an excursion, but if you're going to Nassau, highly recommend getting an excursion in Nassau. Nassau itself, they have a new Margaritaville there. That looks pretty cool. But other than that, the actual port around the cruise, there's a couple things to walk to, but I would recommend an excursion in Nassau, specifically the ones that go to some of the islands or even to areas where you can snorkel are excellent. The third cruise that we went on was on the Carnival Freedom in September of 2011. Had I known what I know today, I would not have gone in September. September 10th is actually the peak day of hurricanes. And we were lucky, we got great weather and everything. So I'm not saying that you won't get lucky, but September 10th, I believe for the past decade, has had a named storm system in the Atlantic Ocean every single year for the past decade. The Freedom was where I started to, actually when we went on the Fantasy, I started to realize that the boats around 70,000 gross tons were a little bit small. It feels like you learn the ship and you know where everything is in one day. That might be a good thing for you all. For me, I like new things. I like seeing new areas of the ship and finding things all throughout the cruise. So the Carnival Freedom out of Fort Lauderdale in September 2011 went to Key West, Grand Cayman, and Jamaica. And that was 110 gross tons, whereas the Fantasy was 70,000 gross tons, And the Freedom was in my opinion, because it was larger, had more things to do, more areas to explore. Grand Cayman is another one of my favorites. We actually went on this one with our cruising travel friends, Dan and Grace, on that one. And that's where I realized I didn't really like Jamaica, because there were a lot of locals that were just overly pushy in my opinion, even more so than in Nassau or in the Bahamas in general. So our fourth cruise was one of my favorites, the Carnival Dream, in March of 2013. Now this one was right after the Carnival Triumph had a breakdown in the middle of the ocean. They had no power. It's kind of sad, actually. I'm smiling because I'm thinking about the Dream when I'm talking about this, but people actually passed away on that Triumph cruise. But after that, Carnival and other cruise ships really cracked down on their emergency and backup protocols. When we went on the Carnival Dream, they did a backup generator test in St. Martin, and it failed the backup generator test. They decided not to set sail and flew us all out of St. Martin. We got to stay an extra couple days there. I enjoyed it. Carnival was really gracious. It's really the cruise, this cruise right here is what set my loyalty into Carnival, because they refunded us 50% of the cruise, I think, and then gave us 50% off on a future cruise. So that one went to Nassau again, St. Thomas and St. Martin. And I actually like St. Martin better than even St. Thomas. St. Thomas has, I can't remember the name of the beach, but it is a famous beach and it is gorgeous. Blue water. Blue water comes from the beach itself, what color the floor is on the beach. If it's white, and the white comes from actual parrotfish. Parrotfish eat the sand and clean it, actually, and then the white sand is actually parrotfish poop. Fun fact. Everywhere when you cruise in the Caribbean, most of the places are just blue. It almost looks like you can drink it. So the fifth cruise that we went on was the Carnival Liberty in 2015. So we actually skipped 2014. The Dream is actually 130,000 gross tons. The Liberty is actually 110,000 gross tons. So it's a little bit smaller than the Dream. And I did actually see the difference in that, but I loved the Liberty as well. It went from Port Canaveral to Nassau, Cozumel, Roatan again, and Costa Maya. I wasn't real impressed with Costa Maya. Maybe it was just the weather that day. I think we missed Roatan because the winds were too high, which happens from time to time. The Liberty was the first one that we took my son on, because that's why we skipped the year. We waited until he was about 1.5 years old before we cruised. And then we went on the Elation 3 years later. If you've had kids before, things kind of get tight for a little while there. So we waited a few years and then we went on the Elation out of Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is only a 6-hour drive for us. So it was pretty convenient for us to do that one. And we definitely did see the difference in the ship. However, with really young kids, like under, I would say, 7 or 8 years old, it's good to take a smaller ship, because you're gonna be attending to your kids. You can put them in the free Camp Ocean, which is awesome, by the way, and they love it. There's video games. Generally, like my son, he absolutely loved it, and this is something that I hear echoed throughout other travelers on Carnival ships, is that they actually your kids will request to go to the camp. So that was in November of 2018. That was our first cruise with him, other than when he was basically a baby. So he could actually enjoy this particular cruise, and he did. He loved it. So we took him again in May of 2019. We went again on the Elation, and it just went to Princess Key, I guess, and Nassau. That was a good cruise as well, but we were kind of burnt out at that point of the smaller boat. After the Elation in May of 2019, we booked the Independence of the Seas, a Royal Caribbean. It was going to be our first Royal Caribbean cruise. And yep, pandemic happened. Long story short, it got canceled. We were really looking forward to that one, because the Freedom of the Seas had laser tag, they had an escape room, and they had an ice rink, and it looked like the entertainment was a little bit better. I haven't been on a Royal Caribbean cruise yet. However, their entertainment looks a little step up. Their food looks like a little step up from Carnival. But my son, he's almost 10 now, I really don't think the young ones will know the difference because their world is so small. But my son does know the difference between the Sunshine and the Mardi Gras, because in April 22, my son and I went on Carnival Sunshine. Is not a small ship. It's 101 gross tons. So it's kind of a middle-sized ship for the Carnival fleet. It's a really good ship, but you spoil it when you go on ships like the Mardi Gras, which is almost 184,000 gross tons. We went on that as my ninth cruise in August 2022. And it went out of Port Canaveral, went to Nassau, Amber Cove, and Grand Turk. The Dream, again, one of the larger Dream class ships, and the Mardi Gras were definitely my favorite ships. Mardi Gras being the best ship I've been on, and the Dream being kind of the second. I have not been on the Vista class either, so I'm afraid that the Mardi Gras and class of ships has spoiled me to those mega ships. And then the 10th cruise that we went on this year back in June, 59 days ago as of today, and I am dying to go on another cruise. But the Sunshine, yeah, we're kind of burnt out from the Sunshine, even though it's a really, really good ship. And I do have another cruise booked in August on the Mardi Gras of 2024. But in the meantime, coming soon, I'm not gonna tell you exactly where we're going, but it is definitely a vacation. It is not a cruise, hint number one. Hint number two, it is not at the beach. So maybe it's kind of like a theme park or something. So stay tuned for that one. That'll be the major one coming up. The following week is probably about the time I'm gonna post the video on that next adventure. See ya in the next one. Peace.